Welcome to the final webinar before the competition begins. Less than a week now until it all starts. So for today's session, we're going to go through some final preparations and information about the competition, so what to expect and what you need to prepare for in the next week and then during the competition. As you no doubt heard with all those little announcements, we are recording this session so that you can go back and review it later. We're also repeating this session tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific time, just to say 24 plus 5, 29 hours from now. The aim is to make this session available to as many people across as many time zones as possible. So you are very welcome to attend both sessions. There might be different questions asked and therefore answers in each session, and we'll record both sessions and post them for everybody to see. So for today, what we will go through is, let's make this a little bit bigger. We'll start out, we'll run through the calendar of events, kind of what you need to expect, particularly events that are required for teams to show up at. We'll talk a little bit about how we're going to do communication during the competition. Zoom, Slack, and there are committee liaisons who've hopefully had some contact with. Rules for teams and also for advisors, rules about the benchmarking, how you go about submitting results, information about the poster sessions, a little bit about scoring, and how we're doing the leaderboard this year. So first up, we have these links. I will post these slides shortly as well. What we can maybe do, I'll do this shortly, is post these links into the Slack. So there is an official calendar of students at SC events, and this link goes to it. There's also a guidebook of useful information. This is kind of what the calendar looks like. You can see there's quite a lot on it, and this includes student programming and other relevant or interesting events for students. For mandatory events for SCC, Kathleen or Stephanie, if you're on, would you like to walk through these?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So we've got this split up into the pre-competition, during the competition, and post-competition. Before the competition, we'll be starting with our safety briefing on Saturday. And then we are asking that all of the SCC students will be joining the Students at SC All Students Orientation as well on Saturday. During the competition, we're going to have daily stand-ups starting on Monday through Wednesday. Actually, I think that's through Thursday, sorry. And then we will have the kickoff where the mystery application will be announced and you will be given access. The budgets will be for real and access to the Oracle Cloud. We also want to do a Zoom photo, so please come prepared to be on camera and to take a photo with us with all the teams. We will be having office hours for each application, and there will be times for the judging for posters. Those will be posted later. And then at the end of the competition will be on Wednesday, November 17th at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. Please make sure that all of your submissions are done by that time. You will not be given extra time, even if you were just almost done submitting something. Please submit early so that you do not run into a problem where you finished and you're unable to do your final submissions. There will be the awards ceremony that will be where the winners will be announced, and then we will have a wrap-up meeting so that you all, the teams, can give us feedback and we can kind of wrap up this year's student cluster competition.
Thanks, Kathleen. Yeah, very important, especially about submitting on time. You don't want to be halfway through submitting your results and the window closes.
Yeah, and just to be clear on that, I think on both the Azure and Oracle side at 5:30 p.m. CST, the access to your submission points will be cut off. So there's, the usual mantra of submit early, submit often applies here. Don't be caught trying to submit at the last minute and, oh, I just need this last 5 bytes. That you're going to be cut off.
Yeah, very important. Kathleen, do you want to talk about communication as well?
Yeah, I can take communication. So for this student cluster competition, we would like to make sure that you all know all of the communication will be happening through the Slack, specifically students SCC VSCC channel. So please pay attention to that. We have been doing our announcements there. Contact Stephanie if you still don't have access, but you should all have access. We will also be using Zoom for the competition interaction with the SC attendees. We'll be sending, and as well for events and daily check-ins, we'll be providing a link to that later. Please pay attention to the Slack for that. Also, we emailed out about your committee liaisons. So if you haven't already talked with your liaison, please feel free to talk to them either on the Slack or through email. Let them know if you have questions or things that you would like to have addressed that are specific to your team. All of the general questions should still go to the main Slack. And we will be having leaderboards for the cloud spend and the usage for Oracle as well as Azure. You'll be able to find those links at the student cluster competition websites that are posted here.
Cool.
And so just to reiterate, teams are going to be required to have 2 members available in the Zoom team breakout rooms during the exhibit floor hours. These are the times posted here. You can also find them on the SC21 schedule if you look up under student cluster competition. We're doing this like a normal year. We will have some students who are going to be at the booth. We're asking the students who will be at the booth to be there during those times. So we're asking teams to be there also in the Zoom breakouts during those times.
Hey, thanks, Kathleen. So a question that comes up every year is, what should the advisors be doing? And, the biggest rule is what the advisors shouldn't be doing. So once the competition starts, the student teams are not allowed to receive assistance from anyone, including their advisors and mentors. So advisors, your work is almost done. In an in-person year, advisors can, bring their team coffee, but that's about it. Of course, that's quite, nail-biting, but also kind of exciting watching your team compete on their own after all the preparation that they've done. But yes, very important. Please, advisors may not provide assistance, just moral support. So benchmarking rules and, sorry, were you going to say something, Kathleen?
Sorry, hello, my name is George Marco Manolis. I lead the I500 task in this competition. I wanted just to inform you a bit how to find it, how to clone the version that we plan to use. It's a git clone, the I500 SC21 SCC, the tag, the compilation to enter this folder and execute the script, and it will compile to create the appropriate banners and download. So I500 is constituted by many also sub benchmarks. I use IOR, MDTES, find command. So it combines all of this. And you execute it, I give an example randomly, API run, a number of processes, and the binary I500 and the ini file. The ini file is configuration there, which is located in when you download it from the repository, and there it's a new rule for the student class competition that it should execute every write phase for 30 seconds. The original version is about 300 seconds. We use 30 because you don't have enough storage with you. So if you have one node, you need to activate the drop cache in this ini file, which basically avoids the caching. And it's sudo, so we assume that you have sudo access on this system, especially when you have one node submission. And you can read the student class competition rules in the link there. And the stone wall is 30 seconds for the write phases. You can decrease it to 1 to 2 seconds to test the benchmark, just to test to see how it works. And then you increase it back to 30. All of this happen in the ini file that's in the repository. Now, be sure that there is no invalid or error in your output. You can grab the word invalid from your all the directory to see if there is something invalid. Invalid is usually when a write phase lasted less than 30 seconds. So then this means that you need to increase the workload that happens from the ini. The workload in the ini file is really big, so I don't think it's something like that. There also, you can tune it for some phases. So you need to read the instructions, how we submit and how you tune the benchmark if you would like to tune it. There's no need to deploy your own parallel file system. You can do it, but it's up to you what you want to achieve. And for us, we want to provide us the execution command or script if you use script, and the directory in the results folder with the best results. In the results folder, it will create a directory for each execution with timestamp. So take this folder, which is the best results, and the execution command or script, compress them and submit them where the committee will tell you. This is mainly about the I500 benchmark.
Thanks, George. So on that submitting results, Rigo, are you online? Do you want to talk about the procedure for getting results getting results visible for scoring?
Hey, Steve, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm Rigo. I'm running the infrastructure along with Andy, Ben, and Dan. And this year, being that everything is virtual, we decided to make things a little easier for the students and the teams. So there will be a designated location on your clusters where you will be submitting your results. Detailed information will be provided this weekend, and depending on the application, you will need to make the subdirectory hierarchy yourself. And therefore, if there are multiple tasks for that application, you need to clearly identify and create subdirectories for those tasks, and then put the appropriate submissions and anything that needs to be included with the submissions in the correct place. There will be penalties if you do not do this correctly, and this is part of the instructions.
Yeah, getting the results into the right place is important, partly so that you make sure that they get seen to be scored. And I think the locations are used also in the leaderboards, correct? Posters. So another element of the competition is you have prepared posters. Is Ben online? Do you want to talk about the poster judging?
I am, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Lovely. Yes, so I am about to send out this email to all of the team advisors. Below are the poster session blocks. Within each of these are 1 hour blocks in CST that relate to when the judging will take place. There will be up to three teams in each of these slots. So each judging session will take about 20 minutes. We'd ask that you keep your presentations to somewhere around 15 minutes so the judges can ask some questions to those who present. I'll be sending out, like I just said, an email to the advisors to sign up for, say which times work for you, and then I'll send out a final schedule to everyone along with a meeting link, either WebEx or that also might be a Zoom link of what times your team is assigned to, and we'll go from there.
That sounds good. Are we encouraging teams to attend each other's poster session presentations?
That's a great question. I wasn't thinking about that originally, but
So,
if there are, go ahead.
Since it's going to be for judging, I was not going to say that students should attend each other's. There are the recordings that will be up for them to watch each other's presentations.
Okay, so that's good to know. So you only need to attend your own presentation,
Correct.
and you can see the recordings of everybody's presentations afterwards. Scoring. So there's quite a bit to unpack here, actually. There are several elements of the competition that are scored. One is that you'll have interviews for each application. You'll be scored on the posters with some interviews associated with that. On the benchmarking, on all of the applications. So Cardio, Quantum Espresso, the reproducibility challenge, and the mystery application, which you don't know what it is yet. Perhaps addressing these one at a time. Yazzie, do you have any advice about the application interviews that students should prepare for? Yazzie online. Essentially, for each application, the application expert will be coming to talk with your team, so you'll have some questions to answer. So understanding a little bit about the application is important. For posters, Ben was just telling us about those, so you'll have a presentation session. Is there anything that students should prepare especially for poster interviews? Ben, perhaps?
Let's see, for the interviews, you're talking about for the poster judging itself?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so we've sent out the rubric for those poster presentations. I would try and abide by that. There's some guidance there also, I believe, about what, sort of outside of just what's on the poster, but also what the rubric is for the actual presentation itself. So that, if you have any questions on that, please feel free to reach out to me in the Slack. Otherwise, it'll just be, be able to talk about your awesome cluster. Judges might ask you some questions and poke and prod your poster, but otherwise, yeah.
Sounds good. Good tip on the rubric, actually. Yeah, pay close attention to that, because that's what the judges are paying close attention to as well. Benchmarking. So George walked us through how to run the IO 500. There are two other elements to the benchmarking, which is HPL and HPCG. Is there any other tips or rules that students should be aware of for those? So I don't think Paul's online at the moment. Kathleen, is there anything that students should know that we haven't mentioned yet about benchmarking?
I don't think so.
That's good. So, all right, so you got 3 benchmarking applications to run, and we'll be looking for the results of those. And then, of course, we have the announced applications. The reproducibility challenge in particular, is Liaison. Do you want to say anything or give any tips about what teams should prepare for
Yeah, sure.
scoring of that one?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Steve. For the reproducibility challenge, I would say if you haven't seen the webinar, please go ahead and watch it. I've already seen that some students have been asking questions and started looking at what the report template looks like. So if whatever you guys can get into the report ahead of time would be valuable, since you're going to be running all these other applications at the same time. You know, plan for contingencies, think about the number of runs you can possibly do and how you can do your scaling experiments. And also don't forget that this is in the backdrop of, you know, why reproducibility is important, and it lives in this, you know, why reproducibility is important for scientific applications in general and science in general, and making sure that you frame your report in that light as well. Yes, so please take a look at the instructions. They're there already. Take a look at what you can do in the report. And for the interview for the reproducibility challenge, again, just think about, you know, the importance of reproducibility. What were the challenges you had in replicating or reproducing these results, or going through these the benchmarking examples that we've put there. But again, the scores you're going to get from the reproducibility challenge are based on the reports you write. So try to get as much of that as you can in ahead of time. So that's all for me.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, that's a good tip. As much as you can write, it's good to write in advance. So the mystery application will be announced at the opening of the cluster competition. So yeah, that will be a challenge for your, you know, building and running and, you know, troubleshooting kind of skills. Yeah, very much on the run. I think we have some of our experts online. Would any of you like to give any tips or scoring type information about either Kyoto or Quantum Espresso?
Excuse me, any question for me?
Just if you'd like to say anything that the students would need to know. We'll also have a Q&A section coming up fairly shortly.
Yeah, I think, Steve, the applications experts are here for Q&A, not to give tips.
Okay. Okay, so that's the elements that are being scored. Very important. There are ways to get penalties, and of course you don't want to be penalized. Important things here are you have an Azure cloud budget. If you go over the cloud budget, you will be penalized. If you do anything to prevent the monitoring processes, that comes with a penalty. Rigo, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So actually, Steve, I'll take care of that.
Oh, okay, Kathleen?
Yeah. So there's a few different penalties that are going to be, you know, we'll be looking out for things this year. That's going to include the cloud budgets. We're going to be running some monitoring on your systems to be able to do the leaderboards and to show that. So if you mess with any of that monitoring, we'll have the details about that in the safety briefing. But just know, like, don't touch our monitoring. Don't exceed your cloud budget, and make sure that you're only using the cloud resources that are provided to you. That's going to be your Azure and your Oracle clouds. Do not use anything else because penalties will range from a few points through disqualification, depending on how severe whatever you're doing is. And that's it for penalties. Thanks.
What information to know? It's a competition, but don't forget, it's also supposed to be, you know, fun and a learning experience and an opportunity to meet other people doing HPC. So, yeah, it's not worth copying the penalty for. And speaking of that, so as part of the cluster competition, you have access also to the technical program. And the Students at SC program also has a lot of really good valuable sessions, like resume workshops. There's some there's a mentoring program. Running alongside the student cluster competition is a data science competition. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I think you'll find in the guidebook and on the calendar and on the SC21 site. So yeah, we do really encourage you to look through the program, especially at the events that are oriented towards students, and take advantage of them. This is a great opportunity. So that is a rapid run through the rules, the scoring, and what to expect. We've got some time now, and a bunch of people from the committee, as well as some of our application experts online. So we have an opportunity now for Q&A. So we've got about 30 people in the room. To begin with, perhaps just unmute yourself and ask a question. And if it starts to get a little too chaotic, we'll move to a raising hands system. So yeah, does anybody have a question that they would like to ask?
This is your last chance. We cut you all off. We're going to turn off Slack.
Ouch. Actually, that is a good point though. For technical questions, do ask on Slack, because it's good for, if you're finding something's a challenge technically, chances are others are as well. And it also makes it a little bit more tractable for the committee and the applications experts to answer questions, once in a way that benefits everybody, rather than trying to field lots of individual questions. Sure. If you send individual emails, they may not get answered.
Yeah, and I do want to reiterate too there, this has been something, even the last 5 years that I've been doing this, a lot of times people will come to the committee suite and ask them, hey, can I ask you this question? We do try and drive people towards the community, forums this year, namely the Slack channel, because unless it's something specific to your team, there's probably other teams that are asking the same question. So for, in respect of the application judges, the cloud experts, all of us on the committee, please try and ask them in public forums, because we can answer the same question for everyone. If it is something that you think is unique to your team, then definitely reach out. But I would recommend everybody reach out via the public forums first.
It's something that's unique to your team. Probably the best person to reach out to first is your team liaison.
Yep, definitely.
Will help to direct you to the right place. Everybody has any questions? If you have a question, but for whatever reason can't turn your microphone on, you can also use the Zoom chat or the Slack chat to ask. This might be quite a short Q&A session. It sounds like everybody's got everything under control, getting the apps to work, getting things working on the clouds. What exactly will the QE benchmark look like?
So I think that's going to be part of the competition to see what the benchmark looks like, right?
The specific tasks.
Yeah, the specific tasks. That's part of the competition.
Yep.
Yeah, the tasks for the applications will all be announced at the beginning of the competition. But each of the applications, I think, has some practice tasks that you've hopefully been able to build around.
Yeah, I'll throw myself under the bus here and ask if anyone has questions around getting started with Azure CycleCloud or resources available or anything like that. I'd like to answer those questions now rather than over the weekend. For anyone who doesn't know, all of us on the committee, this is volunteer time. So we're not paid for this.
This committee members might be harder to get hold of
Yeah,
during off hours and weekends.
yep, exactly. Any input from Oracle Cloud, Luis?
I was going to first say, wow, I never saw a group so well prepared that they don't have any questions. And the second is kind of the same question that you had. I mean, any questions for Oracle? We have our expert here attending the meeting, so Marcin is here and can answer at any level.
So can we safely assume that all of the teams have successfully logged on to both clouds and been able to build and run something?
Well, I think there is one or two teams that are still being scheduled, will be scheduled tomorrow for the Oracle Cloud. But yeah, all the other teams are supposed to have had access already.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the lack of questions is because they don't want to show their cards to anybody else, or is it just everything is so perfect that let's hope it's the latter. Everything.
Everyone's playing a strategic game. So we have a question from Michael in the chat. Are the QE built-in examples helpful to run? I think the answer would be yes, but possibly one of the QE experts
Yes.
to add to that.
If by built-in examples you mean the ones that Ye showed during the webinar, that would be very useful to make sure you can do that.
Yeah, don't forget that each of the applications had a webinar earlier, and those webinar videos and slides are posted on the SC21 SCC webpage, so you can go back and revisit them and make sure you're able to build and run that way. And since we don't seem to have too many questions, it sounds like everybody either completely knows what they're doing or is panicking and stumped. Hopefully it's the former. Completely knows what.
Steve, I will say from the Oracle side, this is common. You know, people find it so easy to use and so straightforward that we rarely get any questions. You know, it's just that good of a service.
I do actually have a question. So Steve, can you go back to the agenda, the one that you overview, the kind of how everything is going to work?
The key things to know, or the
No, yeah, that one. No.
This one.
Yes.
Events.
So I just to make sure, like the office hours is going to be on. Are like we going to use it like the SC platform? So like the teams are just going to kind of click on like whatever apps are available, or how does this kind of works in terms of logistics?
Okay, Yazi, so Thanks for asking that question so that the teams can know what to expect. The office hours for each application will happen on the Slack. So we will designate hours that are, the applications experts will be there for sure to answer questions. And I think, we may potentially have the applications experts come into the Zoom to be able to answer questions for teams, but that'll be based off of their schedules. And we're planning to do most of these things during the exhibit hours, since we will have one team on the floor and as well for the teams to be available in the Zooms.
Okay, so basically everyone just needs to pay very good attention to the Slack.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Watch the Slack very closely. Okay, if there are no other questions, then we might wind up here. If you think of questions between now and tomorrow, you have another opportunity, because in 28 hours time now, we'll run this session again, run through rules and tips, and have another Q&A session. Particularly aimed at people who who this is currently the middle of the night for, but everybody is welcome. We welcome questions. Thank you all for joining us, and good luck in the final preparations.